I've given a non-league team perfect facilities in FM24 to see if that is enough to see them fly up the leagues and produce loads of awesome wonder kids. But obviously I've done it with a twist. So firstly, the club, and the club we've chosen for this is Barnet, and we have given them the, if we can actually see their facilities, we have given them perfect facilities. They have got 20 out of 20 for everything. Top corporate facilities, youth, training, academy, everything is absolutely maxed out. And as far as the club is concerned, that's the only thing that I've changed. I've not given them any more money. I've not given them any changes to reputation, anything like that. We've just given them the best possible facilities, basically to see what kind of youth players they then go on and produce, and if that is enough to propel them up the leagues. But like I mentioned, there is a twist, and the twist is the glorious return of Huey, Dewey and Louie, our triplet wonder kids that we had in the recent video where we were trying to see basically what makes a wonder kid develop. If you want to see that video, I'll link to that at the top of the description below. And while we're doing this Barnet perfect facilities experiment, we're also going to be in the background having a little bit of a redo of the triplets experiment, because we have 3 identical triplets and we're going to see how their careers develop as well. So one of them, Dewey, as with our original version of this, is at Manchester City. I have made one change because a lot of people said the reason they developed at different rates was because their current abilities started too high. So this time, current ability for all 3 of them is starting at 85 rather than 125. And the other big thing that I've made sure is that they all have the same determination. So they all have 20 determination. So Dewey is at Manchester City, where now his current ability is a little bit lower than it was on the first one of these. I would expect him to get fewer opportunities a little later. So we're very much with Dewey testing what happens for a wonder kid when they're just at perfect facilities, because Man City as well also have perfect facilities, exactly the same as Barnet. So he'll have perfect facilities at a high reputation club, but probably won't be playing very much football. Louis is going to be at Barnet. So he will have, he's got exactly the same setup. So the same current ability, if we go in there just to confirm, same current ability of 85, potential ability of 200 on all of these, the same determination as the other 2. But he is going to be at Barnet, where he will also benefit from perfect facilities, but doesn't have the club reputation that Manchester City have, but will almost certainly be playing regular football in the National League and training full time, which is a crucial difference from the last time we did this as well. So training full time in non-league, playing lots of football. Is that more or less beneficial than being at a high reputation club with those fancy facilities? And then as our control, we have poor old Huey, who has had the same downgrade as the other 2. So he's 85 current ability, 200 potential, got the same determination as the other 2. He's going to be at Dagenham and Redbridge, who have had nothing done to them. The reason I've selected Dagenham and Redbridge as the 3rd team is because they've got exactly the same reputation as Barnet. So both Dagenham and Barnet would be expected to be sort of mid-table National League teams, but Dagenham don't have the fancy facilities. If we have a look at what they've got in terms of facilities, you can see it's just pretty basic stuff. But obviously Huey will be playing regular football at Dagenham, just like Louis will at Barnet. And in addition to seeing how Barnet progress over the next however many years, we're going to see how these 3 boys progress. So let me know down in the comments who you think is likely to have the best career, if you think all 3 of them are going to end up as superstars one day, because the one other thing we've put in there is both Huey and Louis, as soon as they turn 23, will be joining Dewey at Manchester City in £10 million deals. So I am actually paying a transfer fee for the youngsters this time. So both Dagenham and Barnet will get that cash injection when they lose their superstars. Let's get to simulating and see what happens. So 1 year in, and Barnet finished 4th in the National League. Interestingly, 1 place below Dagenham and Redbridge. So they've both massively benefited from having these wonder kid players at their club. Neither of them able to pull off a promotion, but at the moment doesn't seem like the extra facilities at Barnet has made a significant difference. If we have a look at the Barnet squad just to see what kind of youngsters they're getting come through, you can see they've had a couple of good youth players who've emerged, in addition to Louie, of course, who is already here. But they've had this guy, Sam Richards, who is a striker, and they've had Bailey Rowan come through as well as a goalkeeper in their recent youth intake. Neither of them actually playing in the team yet, but they are starting to get some good youngsters come through, much better quality youngsters than you would expect a team of Barnet size. And if they get youth intakes like that every year, it's not going to be too long before they're either flying up the leagues or starting to make loads of money from selling these youngsters on. Let's have a look to see how the triplets are getting on as well. So Dewey at Manchester City, as expected, hasn't played any football at all, although he did play 74 times for the Man City youth setup, 31 goals scored, but no actual football played. He's now 16 years old, has one England under-21 cap as well, and has now moved on to a current ability of 107. So he's had a boost of, what's that, 22 points of current ability, despite not playing any football, but training with perfect facilities. Louie, on the other hand, has played 39 times for Barnet, scored 14 goals, 6 assists, high average rating, lots of man of the match awards, also been training with perfect facilities, and he is up to 101, so he's not progressed as far. So do the facilities even matter, or is it just about the reputation of the club? Maybe the quality of the coaches having an impact as well there. And if we look at our control, Huey, so Huey at Dagenham also played lots of football, 41 matches played, 16 goals scored, and he is 99. So it does have a little bit of a difference, the facilities, because the one with the worst facilities is the one who's developing the slowest, but not by a lot. There's not a huge amount of difference between the three of them so far. Let's push forward a couple more years. Right, 2 more years in, and Barnet and Dagenham are still pushing for promotion, but not achieving it. So that first year, they were 3rd and 4th. The next year, 3rd and 4th, but had swapped around, with Barnet being the highest of the two. And then they've moved on to 2nd and 3rd, but both of them still stuck in the National League. If we have a look to see the youngsters that we've got going on at Barnet now, obviously Louis still here, but Julian McLeod is a new young striker that they've got, who's played 12 times. It looks like the previous 2 youngsters have moved on, maybe. Ryan Moore came through the youth system as well, but those couple of high potential ones that they had before are no longer at the club. So are they already being taken off of them? They are. I mean, Sam Richards was the striker, so he's gone to Wolves for 215,000 and is now valued at somewhere between 17.5 and 52 million. Oh, the reputation of Barnet is going to be a problem here, isn't it? They are just going to be losing all of their superstar youngsters on the cheap. Oh, bless them. Right, well, they've got £1 million to reinvest now, still got fantastic youth setup. They could really use with getting in the Football League, but hopefully they'll start reinvesting some of that money, you would hope. Let's look at our shortlist again. So if we start with Dewey at Manchester City, he is still hasn't played a game for City. Did go on loan to Coventry in the Championship, so has played a full season out on loan. So that's definitely going to help his development. 40 games, 13 goals, has now played 16 times for the England under-21s as well, and has moved up to 141 on his current ability. So probably ready to start making the breakthrough into the Man City squad, you would think, with a current ability of that kind of level. Louis at Barnet, despite seeing his friends come and go, has stuck around because he has to. He's played over 100 games for Barnet now, scored over 40 goals, and he has moved up to 131, so about 10 points behind his Manchester City associate, despite playing over 100 games, but he is playing those games at a lower level, so the level of game obviously is important as well. And then Huey, who's not had the advantage of the training facilities, has played more games and scored more goals, and quite frankly, based purely on stats alone, looks like the best of the three at the moment. I suspect he probably isn't. His current ability only 120, so he is starting to lag behind, although he is making progress, which I guess is good. Well, 2 more years and something's definitely clicked at Barnet, because all of a sudden They're in League One after only 2 more years. So if we have a look at what's gone on there, they won the National League and then finished 4th in League Two and won the playoffs. So if we have a look at the National League that year, they won it because obviously Dagenham had been going hand in hand with them. In fact, continued to. So Barnet got promoted as champions, Dagenham going up through the playoffs. We'll keep an eye on them in a second because maybe you don't need facilities. Maybe just giving a team one wonder kid is enough, because Dagenham promoted with Barnet, and then the following year in League Two, we have Barnet going up through the playoffs in 4th place. Dagenham also went up. Dagenham getting promoted in 2nd place. The facilities are making no difference at all. Dagenham are keeping pace with Barnet, and both of them are now going to be in League Two this following season. That is bonkers. Let's look at the players, because clearly Huey at Dagenham is really dragging them up through the leagues. We've got Dewey at Manchester City, who's now played 15 times for England, by the way. 15 England caps, 3 goals. Has been a Man City regular-ish for the last couple of years. I mean, he's playing starting maybe half the games, which at Man City, I guess, is pretty regular. But he is now a Manchester City first team player, and presumably, yeah, his current ability, 172, definitely reflecting that. It's now 3 years until the other two join him at City, so he's got a little bit more time to fully establish himself. And obviously Louie and Huey starting to push their way up through leagues. Louie at Barnet has made his England debut. That is extraordinary. He has never played higher than League Two, but has made his England debut and scored for England. I don't know that I've ever seen that before. Over 200 games now for Barnet, 72 goals. He is developing very, very fast as well. 159 current ability for him. So he is already ready to be a Premier League player. He'll walk straight into that Man City squad when he goes there in a couple of years' time. But clearly the benefit of over 200 games, moving up the leagues, playing at a higher level each year, and having that incredible training facility as well, is doing wonderful things for Louie. But Huey, we know, is also doing really well for Dagenham, because he's also played over 200 games, scored over 100 goals, also led his team to promotion after promotion, and he is now up to 136 current ability. So not quite keeping pace with the other two, but he doesn't have the training facilities. He is having to do it all on the pitch. The other thing I just want to check with Barnet is what kind of youngsters they've got knocking around the place. Obviously, we've been checking in on this a fair bit, and it looks like they are starting to keep hold of some of them. This guy has actually even been put on the transfer list because he's not getting in the team, because I guess they got a couple of decent goalkeepers come through at the same time, neither of which they're using. So do they have many goalkeepers? Why are they not using that goalkeeper? It looks like they had a goalkeeper they were using who they've now sold. So it looks like they are still having to sell players, although not as much as they did in that first year. There's a couple of them leaving. They're scattering players around the country with these youngsters, but definitely still developing 1 or 2 decent young players every year. The most recent one, Brooke Alacy, 16 years old, and he's just come through the youth system most recently with 145 potential. And you can see that the squad is definitely starting to look very young as they become Wonder Kid FC. And can they keep moving up the leagues, especially once they lose Louie in a couple of years? I think it's 2030, actually, that Louie and Huey go to join Dewey at Man City. Will either Barnet or Dagenham make it into the Championship before them? And the answer to that is no. They both seem to have settled into the mid-table. You can see 2 years ago we had Barnet finishing 19th, Dagenham 15th, and then most recent season, Barnet 11th, Dagenham 12th. It genuinely is fascinating me how closely Dagenham are following Barnet with the incredible facilities and also all the great young players, the transfer sales that Barnet have got. And Dagenham, just through one player, are absolutely keeping pace with them. It is absolutely bonkers. If we look at this Barnet squad just to see, I mean, again, we've got some really very good potential players there. This guy, Ben Smith, 166 potential. We've got the goalkeepers again, 150, 146. Alesi, who we looked at before. They're churning out the young players and presumably still selling a chunk of them off as well. So they lost one for 1.2 or 1.1 million. This guy, Lee Campbell, going to Everton. So they're generating all this money, which Dagenham just aren't, I'm assuming. Let's have a look at the Dagenham squad. Are they chock full of superstar youngsters? Not really. These are players they've signed themselves, although it looks like they have had a decent English young striker come through of their own, which is that because of Huey? Has he caused that to happen, or is that just a random thing? They're also selling players for quite a lot of money, but conversely, it's players they've brought in and then sold on. So Dagenham very much doing it through wheeler dealing, off the back of the success that they're having on the pitch because of this superstar youngster that they've got. I did not expect both of those teams to start moving up the leagues. If we look at the players who are now all going to be joining up at Manchester City, because these transfers are happening today. So this is right at the end of their careers with the League One club. So it'll be interesting to see what happens to them after they're gone, especially Dagenham, who won't have the facilities to fall back on. But Dewey at Manchester City's number 10 now, 37 England caps, 14 goals, is a regular player and goal scorer for City, and his current ability has made it up to 197. So at this point, Dewey is almost certainly the best player in the world. Has he started winning Ballon d'Ors and things yet? It might be a little bit, he might be a little bit young for that, weirdly. It doesn't look like he's quite there just yet, but he is not going to be very far away from winning these top level prizes. In fact, if we look at the World Golden Ball, it is still Kylian Mbappe, Jude Bellingham, Bukayo Saka, Erling Haaland. Yeah, it's the ones you would expect at the moment. But Dewey must be getting close. He is nearly at that level. Louie, off of Barnet, still only that one cap for England. Probably feels a little bit hard done by that he's only played once for England. Although, has he had an injury? Because he only played 7 times for Barnet last season. 7 league games, but he played 10 times for them in the Cups. And wasn't injured. What are Barnet up to? After 250 games, they've just decided, don't really need him. Has his development stopped? No, he's 172. Have they got better players than him? They can't have, because they're still in League One. I don't understand what's going on. They're just not using him. And there's not really any explanation for why. They've still got these great young players coming through, but not using Louie, which I guess has slowed his development down a little bit. And then meanwhile, Huey at Dagenham also didn't play a lot. I don't know why that's happened. Let me know down in the comments why you think they would just stop playing and not really be used. That's so weird. And he never even played for the under-21s. 147 current ability. He might get lost in the shuffle at Manchester City when he goes there. I don't know why they stopped playing them. I can't work out why that would be. Right, 3 more years have passed. Barnet are still in League One. Notably, Dagenham and Redbridge are not. Now, that could mean they've been promoted and have actually gone past Barnet, or it could mean that they've lost their superstar and have dropped back down. Let's check the Championship. They're not in the Championship, so Dagenham, having lost their player, have now started to tumble back down through the leagues, which really does show that they were being held up at that level by their one superstar young player, Huey. It is interesting to see, despite selling Huey for £10 million, they've not really invested that money at all. They've barely spent any money on transfers. Have they gone out and improved their facilities? They haven't really. I don't really understand what they've spent the money on, if anything. We can see their finances, I think. their bank balance is minus. Where on earth have they spent the money? I don't know where the money went. That is bonkers. I guess the chairman took it, and now they're going to start falling back down the league. So Dagenham, I guess, are done. They were literally being dragged up there by one superstar player. Barnet, on the other hand, are still benefiting from having fantastic facilities, although interestingly, they don't have any of their super high potential players anymore. So I think more than one guy has moved on and left the club. And this, I guess we're 10 years in now. This could be an indication that their facilities might be starting to deteriorate. They're down to superb, excellent, exceptional. Let's have a look at what those ratings actually are. If we look at facilities, so these were all 20s before, so they're now down to 18, 17 and 20s. So there's no reason why they should necessarily be losing or not bringing through as many good young players. But oh my word, they spent some money. So the year they sold Louie for 10 million, they actually sold 26 million pounds worth of players. So had a huge bunch of players leave the club that year, and then actually spent 900,000 pounds the following year and lost another superstar youngster, and then spent 6.5 million pounds, including all that money on Will Dixon. This is not the way for you, Barnet. Buying 26-year-old players for 4.5 million pounds off of Southend is not the answer. That is an insane transfer. He's only ever played in League Two. He's not young enough to go on and become great. He only scored 12 goals. That is insanity from Barnet. That might cause them some problems a little bit further down the line. They are still stuck in League One. Let's have a look at our triplets as well while we're here. So starting off with Dewey, the one who was at Manchester City from the start, who's got shin splints now. Bless his cotton socks. He's played exactly 250 games for City. Once he got in the team, never had that season where he didn't really play, unlike the other two. And he presumably has now maxed out his ability. He has 200 current ability. He is not just the best player in the world, he's the best player in the history of the world. And presumably that is starting to be reflected in winning things. He's won World Player of the Year. Most recently, won World Player of the Year. Notice his brothers aren't on there just yet. He was third place that year. So he is the best player in the world and recognised as such. If we look at Louie is the one who started at Barnet and then, as I said, went straight into Man City and straight into the team. As you would expect, he was good enough when he arrived. He's had 3 years there at City now. Has played 21 games, 7 goals for England, and presumably is not far behind his brother at this point. He is 193, yeah, so he is also one of the best players in the world. Presumably will start challenging Dewey for the Ballon d'Or within a year or two, because he's now got all of that game experience, the benefit of having the excellent facilities at Barnet when he was younger, still only 25. He's going to max out his potential as well, I am sure. And then lastly, we've got Huey, who of course starting at Dagenham didn't have that advantage, but also went into City and has played games. So not playing quite as regularly, very much the option who comes off the bench, probably coming off the bench for one of his brothers when that happens, but has 7 England caps, is attracting some interest from Newcastle. But as it stands currently, 165 current ability. So there's your difference that facilities make to the development of a wonder kid. Because if you compare Huey and Louie, their development was exactly the same. They both started at exactly the same reputation clubs and had exactly the same game opportunities, actually moved up through the leagues together, which was very convenient for the purposes of this experiment. And his development is now about 30 points behind his identical twin brother, because he didn't have those facilities when he was younger. So facilities, massively, massively important. And the level of football you're playing at is obviously quite important as well, because Dewey developed further and faster than Louie, even though he had the same facilities and played more games. So I think we've probably solved the triplet conundrum now. We'll check in with them again before their careers are over, but I'm now more interested in what Barnet are going to do. They've still got great facilities. Can they make it to the Championship? 5 more years, I think. So 5 more years and Barnet are still in League One. They may have hit they're hit their level. If we just have a look at their last 5 years, I mean, they're pushing for it. They got into the playoffs last year, but they've still not managed to make it any further than that. Player-wise, they're still, if they're bringing through high potential youngsters still, they're selling them almost immediately. And that probably is what's happening, because they've lost £4.6 million off a player there. And it was all in the shape of, oh, to be honest, he's an old guy. So that's not a youngster that they've lost. So are they still losing the youngsters? Graham Evans, 20 years old. I guess they are. Weirdly, not even really using them either, because Graham Evans, who's now huge, he got huge value at Nottingham Forest. He came through at Barnet. They loaned it. They're not using their young players. They loaned him out. They sold him. And now Forest are loaning him out. But he only ever played 2 substitute appearances for Barnet. Why are they not using the young players that they're bringing through? It makes no sense. And let's just check in on the triplets as well. So they're now all 30 years old. Dewey injured again. He was injured he was injured 5 years ago. He is continuing to be great. Presumably is still 200 out of 200. He is. I imagine his brother's caught him up as well now. Has he continued winning Ballon d'Ors and things like that? He has won a lot of Ballon. If Louie won the Ballon d'Or as well. So the year after Dewey won the Ballon d'Or, Louie went and won it with Dewey as the backup. So Louie, I guess, has also maxed himself out as well. He is 196. So not quite as good as his brother, but pretty blooming close. He actually finished 3rd that year as well. And then Dewey winning it with Louie in 3rd. Dewey winning it with Louie in 2nd, Dewey winning it with Louie in 3rd. Not noticing Huey anywhere. How did Huey get on? Huey is still at Manchester City. He is starting to play really quite regularly for City and England as well. But his ability, 173, he's never going to make it to that truly elite level. All because he didn't have those. I mean, it literally says there he's elite, but because he didn't have those top tier facilities when he was a youngster, it's just held him back throughout his entire career, despite everything else, his determination, his potential ability, all being exactly the same as his brothers. So you need good facilities to develop young players. Who knew? So 5 more years have passed. We are now 20 years into the future. Is that the youngster who used to play for Posh? No, different Jamie Day, clearly. It was Jamie Day who used to play for Posh. But we are 20 years into the future, and Barnet have now made it into the Championship. If we have a look at the leagues, you can see they made it up finally a couple of years ago, and very nearly heading straight to the Premier League. There might be a Premier League promotion in Barnet's future. They're still absolutely chock full of exciting young players, although most of them now are players that are actually on loan from bigger clubs. Man City, Porto, Man City, Plymouth, Watford. So the best young players at the club are all the ones that are actually in on loan. So maybe they've just kind of stopped producing their own, but had enough momentum built up to just keep going at this point. You can see they are still selling a lot of good players. So £21 million of a player sold there, most of it in the shape of this guy who's been sold to Cardiff for 21 million, another one who's come through the Barnet youth setup. So they are still selling more youngsters than they're using, which is, it makes it all the more impressive that they're moving up the leagues the way they are. Still playing at the Hive, but they do still have their good facilities. Let's just check in on how their facilities are actually looking numbers-wise. They are slowly but surely declining. 16, 16, 19, 19, still 20 on the corporate, so the prawn sandwiches are still good. They're also looking for a new stadium, which is interesting, so that should help push them on to the next level. I wonder what happened to Dagenham. Dagenham are back down in the National League. So it literally was a case of they had one good player who took them all the way up to League One. He isn't even on their legends list, only made it as far as being an icon. And let's just check in with the triplets. Now 35 years old, and only Louie is left at Manchester City. So Dewey who started at City and has played 167 times, scored 90 goals for England, has gone to make his money in Saudi Arabia, going to Al Hilal for £48 million and earning £1.6 million a week at 35. He is now down to 166 on his current ability, so well in decline at 35 years old. Louie, still at Man City, played over 100 games for England himself. Has he potentially outlasted his brother? He's 161, so he's also in decline, and still slightly below his brother. And then Huey has made it to Barcelona at 35 years old, did play 71 times for England, so a very, very good career for him as well. If only he hadn't been forever compared with his brothers. Has had 4 good years at Barcelona, and his ability, 158. You know what? At 35 years old, they're all roughly the same now. It took a while, but they've roughly evened out. And our last little jump forward, we've got another 10 years, so it's now 30 years of Barnet having these youth facilities, and it looks like, or training facilities as well, not just youth facilities. It looks like they have maxed out in the Championship. In fact, despite having that moment where they looked like they could hit the Premier League just after they got into the Championship, they've never really got back to those heights, struggled in the Championship, ended up dropping back down to League One, and have only just made it back up into the Championship, where once again struggling to hold on to that spot in the Championship. If we have a look at their stadium, they now play at the 50 or 16,000 all-seater Dougie Freedman Park. So they did move out of the Hive. They're still training at the Hive, interestingly. And they do still have great facilities, but probably no longer state-of-the-art level kind of stuff. If we look at those facilities, they're down to 14, 15, 19, 19 and 20. Corporate just stays great forever, doesn't it? But these they've not invested in this stuff in 30 years, so it has now brought them back down to being roughly in line, presumably with other clubs in this league, so they no longer have any significant competitive advantage. They've got they are still capable of producing a young player when they feel like it, aren't they? Arantez Lloyd, 174 potential, presumably not going to be here at Barnet for very much longer at all. It'd be a little bit of a shame to see a young goalkeeper with that kind of potential going to play for LA Galaxy, but they do still produce some good players. There are still some big transfers going out of the club, although not massively regularly, but every now and again you'll get a couple. So Neil Daly, he's an old man, don't need to worry about him. Dane Fleming, at 25. So they are still bringing players in. They're basically keeping themselves afloat with this youth setup. If I were them, I would be looking to invest some more money back into it to try and actually keep this flowing a little faster. But they made it to the Championship. That's what giving them perfect facilities has done. And I suspect if we now push their facilities back up to perfect again, they'd probably get to the Premier League eventually. But 30 years, they've gone from the National League to establishing themselves as a comfortable mid-table Championship team. And that's the difference giving a non-league club perfect facilities can make. And let's just finish things off by seeing if any of the Wonder Kids became managers. It doesn't look like they did. Let's just check in on them. So Dewey retired after a couple of seasons at Al Hilal. Louie, where is he? Louie retired, a Man City player, not long after we last checked in with them. And Dewey's the one we already looked at, wasn't he? It's Huey we want. Oh, it gets confusing. These ducks, my word. Huey retired as a Barcelona player. So they all retired pretty much at the same time at different clubs in different parts of the world. You need good facilities. And if you get them, you'll shoot at the league. There you go. Experiment complete. Let me know down in the comment section if there's more you'd like me to check out with Huey, Dewey and Louie, or have we pretty much established now what you need to be able to develop young players? I think we probably have. And also, what other experiments would you like to see in the future? We've obviously given a non-league club excellent facilities in this one. We can try giving them a big ground. We can try giving them money. You know the drill. I'm always up for some experimentation, especially experiments with a twist. So if you've enjoyed this one, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on it for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos. And thank you very much for watching.